Right, a very good morning to you. Thursday, the 11th of March, and we've only got today and tomorrow's assembly, and then juniors will be back into school. So no more assemblies on YouTube. You're getting the assembly live in school every day, which is something to look forward to. And this morning's story is about a young gentleman called Bob. And Bob is greedy. Now, when you think of greed or being greedy, you might think about eating too much. You might be thinking somebody like Augustus Gloop in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But you can be greedy for other things other than food, and that's what this morning's story is about. Bob didn't have any brothers or sisters. His parents made sure that he had everything he needed, but they also gave him everything he wanted too. Do you think that's the right thing to do, to give somebody everything that they want? For example, there was the day when Bob and his mum went out shopping. Bob pointed at the shop window with a huge display of toy cars and demanded, "I want that one, the red one." Now, buying presents for your children can be a very good thing to do, and it isn't bad to own a toy car. But Bob had so many toy cars that he didn't know where to put them all. Of course, Bob's mum knew this, and yet she still answered, "Yes, of course, my darling," and promptly went into the shop and bought the toy car, the red toy car that Bob had asked for. Things like this happened all the time. If Bob didn't get the things he wanted, then he would either sulk or become very angry. And so Bob's parents did their very best to give him all that he had asked for. Do you think Bob is very happy in his life? You would be forgiven for thinking that Bob had a very happy childhood, but unfortunately that was not the case. He had so many things that he didn't know where to put them, and he certainly didn't play with every toy he had. Being so desperate to have, Bob didn't even have many friends because he didn't want to share his toys with anyone. So as a child, Bob had the reputation of being selfish, mean, and above all greedy, and he grew up to become a selfish, mean, and greedy man. He worked hard and earned lots of money so that he could buy the things he wanted. He bought a large house with a games room, a cinema, an indoor swimming pool, and with a tennis court outside in the corner of his huge garden. He wore the nicest clothes and he ate the best food. He was also able to afford servants to clean and tidy up after him, to cook for him, and to generally take care of everything. However, Bob's pride and joy were his cars. Not toy cars anymore, but real cars, sports cars. You will remember that as a child, Bob had had a problem with sharing his toys, and as a man, Bob was no different. Bob grew up without friends, and he still spent most of his time by himself. That is, until one day. This life-changing day began like any other. Bob woke, ate his breakfast, dressed in one of his expensive suits, and drove off to work in one of his expensive cars. And he was walking from the car park to the office where he worked. Bob passed two men who were collecting money for a local children's hospital. Now, normally Bob would ignore people collecting money or think of an excuse why he couldn't give them anything. But today, when he heard one of the men say, "Could you spare some money to help the 6 children at St. Catherine's Hospital, sir?" he just couldn't think of an excuse. And before he knew what he was doing, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a handful of change. He put the money in the collecting pot and carried on walking, with the sound of the man's voice ringing in his ears. "Thank you, sir. You are very generous." He was given another opportunity to be generous when he was asked if he wanted to give some money for one of the ladies in the office who was getting married, with the words, "We'd love to buy her something really nice from all of us." He was persuaded to dig into his pocket again, and once again he was thanked for his generosity. How do you think Bob's feeling now, having helped others? How do you feel if you'd helped somebody? Bob was also forced to share his time. At lunchtime, he happened to be in the main part of the office. It was extremely crowded, and his heart sank when he heard the first notes of "Happy Birthday." Bob usually did his best to hide himself away, as he didn't want to waste his time on other people, and he would much rather be working and earning money to buy more things. However, on this particular day, Bob had no choice but to stay where he was. He was in the middle of the crowded room and he couldn't find a way of escaping and finding a place to hide. He had to stand where he was and join in with the singing and as a large chocolate cake was carried into the room and placed carefully in front of one of his fellow workers. He had to stay until the singing and the cheering was over and the cake was cut. Finally, right at the end of the day, as he was about to leave the office and make his way home, one of his colleagues knocked on his door and said, "Bob, I wouldn't normally ask, but I was wondering if you could be able to help give me a lift to the garage. My car's being fixed and I've missed the bus and no one else is going that way." And Bob could tell that he was embarrassed, and for once in his life, he took pity on someone. He gave the man a lift to the garage so that he could collect his car, and for the third time that day, he was thanked. Bob went home that night with a warm feeling inside of him. He had been generous with his time and his money, and that made him happy. Being alone gave him plenty of time to think about the things that had happened that day, and he decided he would try not to be so greedy. He realised that he had never truly been a happy person, even with lots of things around him. From then on, Bob was like a different person. He would always give money to charity and to collections in the office. He was the first to offer lifts to people, and he always made sure that he helped to celebrate birthdays. Bob started to make friends and he invited them to his house. Finally, he was able to enjoy his tennis court and his games room, and he found that swimming and watching films is much more fun with other people. Bob discovered that sharing is a very good thing. He even sold some of his cars and gave the money to St. Catherine's Children's Hospital. Well, yes, Bob now is a changed man. He used to be called mean and greedy, but instead people now know him as Bob, the man who is generous and kind. And Bob learned a very valuable lesson there, isn't it? It's not good to be greedy, it doesn't make you happy. He had always had what he wanted, but that certainly hadn't made him happy. And being selfish had meant that he'd grown up without friends. So be a kind person, be a generous person, give your time to people, help and support in whichever little way or big way that you can. Makes you a happier person. What a wonderful message this morning. So tomorrow is Friday and we'll have the answer to the riddle of the week, and we will also be having our final assembly in this way, and on Monday we get the juniors coming back. Yay! Everybody's really looking forward to it, so, and I'm sure you all are too. So, hands together and eyes closed, we'll all finish with our school prayer. In die tree. This is our school, let peace dwell here, let the rooms be full of contentment, let love abide here, love for one another and love for life itself. Let our school be a lovely place where all of us are caring to each other, to work our best and show our smiling face, staff and children helping one another today and always. And as we say, over and out.